Hello, welcome to Phoenix and Flame. I'm Dana, otherwise known as the Queen of Boundaries, and I'm so glad you're here. You've landed in a space full of support. My website, danaskaggs.com, offers a free boundaries quiz, online courses, coaching support, and my funny blogs. I'm also available for speaking events. If you live in Tennessee and need a therapist, visit danaskaggs.therapy.com. Now, without further ado, let's get to our next awesome episode. Welcome, friends. Whether you're out on a walk, running errands, or relaxing at home, it's wonderful to connect with you. Today, we are going to be talking with Annette Mullin. Annette is a retired Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department leader with 24 years of experience. Now, Annette spent over 2 decades investigating violent crimes and 9 years as a crisis negotiator, eventually leading the crisis negotiation team. Today, as a negotiation instructor and coach at the Black Swan Group, Annette translates those high stakes experiences into practical tools for leaders, teams, and individuals navigating pressure, conflict, and growth. Annette, welcome to Phoenix and Flame.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you, Jenna.
This is going to be so interesting. Now, I have to throw the in here. I did some research on LinkedIn, and guys, you're going to be fascinated with this. Now, Annette, you have a master's degree not only in theoretical and mathematical physics. Did I look at that correctly?
I have a master's degree in theology.
Theology, Christian
So it's
leadership.
correct. Way too smart for me to be theoretical mathematics. I can
Because I
barely count
thought
on my
that was going to
fingers.
be such an interesting. I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to. So how does somebody's brain do that?
My brain for sure does not. When you talk about boundaries, there's one right there.
I love it. So your master's is in Christian leadership.
Correct.
Got you.
Correct.
Which is that's an interesting layer over everything that you've experienced. So let me just kind of give you space and let you decide where you would like to begin about how in the world did you get to be in that space and what was that like? And we'll just weave back and forth with all kinds of questions.
Sounds great. So I am originally from the East Coast, and I landed in Las Vegas because I went to grad school out in LA. And while I was out there, the LAPD was not hiring, but I wanted to work in what I thought was crime scene investigations. Before CSI came about, so I'm going to date myself. That wasn't even a vision. I went to Cal State LA to go to their criminalistic school, and it was fantastic because yeah, I was there during the O.J. Simpson case. So talk about watching the real world unfold. You have our instructors were just they were in the real world. They were doing it. Christopher Darden actually taught at our school. He was one of the prosecutors on the case. So just getting to see all that unfold in front of me and seeing issues with crime scene evidence, it just really sparked my fire. But as I got further along in my education, I realized I didn't wanna be behind the scenes. I realized I wanted to be in the forefront actually investigating the crimes itself using that evidence. And the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department came to our campus, and they did recruiting out there. And my lead instructor said, "You know, in LA, you might not ever be able to afford a house. You might always have a 2-hour drive to work. We're not hiring. It's just all these things." Whereas Las Vegas at the time was this huge growing city. He said it's very proactive, considerate. So I went out to Las Vegas and just was really impressed with the agency, really proactive at the time. And there was because it was a building city, I knew that I could go many places in my career. So I went out there at 29 years old, one of the oldest people in my academy. I went and just what an amazing experience to, go through the hard work of an academy, and then gosh, it's a fantastic agency. The training was amazing, and then went out into patrol and worked in outlying areas such as Laughlin, Nevada. We have a substation out there. I worked in criminal intelligence, community policing. I also did sexual assault crimes, internal affairs, and then eventually promoted. When I was right before promoting, they had an opportunity to, join the crisis negotiation team. So I went to the school, went through the scenarios, and got chosen for the team, and that was it was an amazing experience to be able to respond to people in crisis with a team and to work to help them peacefully resolve it so everyone was safe. And Las Vegas has one of the busiest crisis negotiation teams in the United States. We were averaging, gosh, over 100 call outs a year just in because in Las Vegas, some people come, it's their last stand. It is whether they are running from a crime themselves, running from reality themselves, or just find themselves on hard luck. It was a very busy team, and so I was taught from some of the best, where 2 of my team members now actually work for Black Swan, uh, Chief Dennis Flynn and Sergeant Don, Fieselman. They were part of the negotiation team and now part of Black Swan. So, was able to be a crisis negotiator, promoted, went back into sexual assault, was chosen to go to homicide, and that was so my dreams from being a little kid of working on crime scenes came to fruition as a supervisor in homicide, and then went to the police academy so I could actually help instruct the new kids coming in. And then my last spot at the police department I was the director of the employee wellness. And I was put there after the events of 1 October, or the Mandalay Bay shooting, which, if you're not aware, is the largest mass shooting in the United States. And my job was to find resources for our employees, their families, as we healed from this just devastating incident, let alone the stressors of being involved in law enforcement, whether you're in corrections, whether you were a civilian. There's Cops have problems just like everyone else. So
Mm.
looking for ways to help people help themselves. And so I retired in 21, and that was an amazing place to go because I learned so much about people and the honor, as I'm sure you know, of sitting with people when they're in their darkest times and helping them find resources.
That's wow, what an amazing story. And I have 3 questions. I'm just gonna kinda toss them out and you can take
Sure.
them at will, whichever in order you would like. The first question I had as I was listening to you describe your journey was, what was it about crime that appealed to you as a child that you were thinking, "That's the direction I'm going to go."
Right?
So that's one question. Number 2 is, when you experienced the education and the classes and the cohorts, did you notice anything intergender disparities? Because I'm
Right.
imagining we might have some women out there that are thinking, "Man, that sounds really interesting, but I'm kinda wondering, what's it gonna be like for a woman? What's it gonna be like for me? Am I gonna be treated equally? What should I expect?" All the things. And then the third question I had is, what surprised you the most about the negotiation experience? When you would engage with that, when you engage with people and you're trying to talk them down and prevent something horrible from happening, what was something that you experienced along the way that was surprising to you that you didn't see coming?
Sure. Those are great questions. And my memory will go like this, so you'll have to get me back on track, I'm sure. Um, you ask why in law enforcement. I am the first law enforcement person in my family. So there is no history, there is no mentorship, nothing. I think as a young girl, I was an avid reader. I was a Nancy Drew girl. So reading those stories, loving the trying to solve puzzles, trying to figure things out. And then as a young girl, the show Quincy, where for those that are not, of our age, he was a medical examiner who got to solve crimes, which is Hollywood. It's not even real, but it just sucked me in. I was allowed to watch one show on TV a week, and I wanted to watch Quincy. So
I
that
remember, like,
really
Columbo.
right, right. So I just wanted to have an alligator on my boat like, Quincy did. But just that kind of sucked me in, just like the Hollywood idea of what it was to solve crime kind of got me interested at first. I'm like, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then as I got further into it, realizing that it was really great to put pieces together. It was I love the way that you could use your brain and everyone's brain to kind of solve problems, solve situations, and then just help people in a difficult situation. I'm a helper by nature, so it really appealed to so many of, my gifts I feel and my drives. So that's what really got me into it. But my father said, because the last thing he wanted was a daughter that was a cop because he was scared for me. And he goes,
Yeah.
"Please don't do that here. Do it somewhere where we're not worried every day because we see a news and you might not even be working, but we've assumed that you've done it." And he's like, "And please get your education first, just in case you don't like it, you have something to fall back on. So just do a dual path." And so, absolutely, and I agreed. And so that's why I went West Coast to be a police officer. Uh,
Nice. So the
You'd asked
gender.
about gender, and that it's such a great question. I am the youngest of 3 girls, and I kinda call myself the boy of the family because my dad was like, "What's happening?" Right? "I need someone to play sports." So, we were always very active, and this is gonna sound strange as I never had considered my gender would ever be an issue of not getting what I want because that was never an issue in our house, right? You wanna work hard, you wanna put the work in, you're gonna achieve what you want. It's about
Mhm.
putting the work in and treating people well, you'll get there. But when I went to the police department, you realize that there were some very gifted women that paved the way for me that worked hard, that they, became police officers when it was so rare that I knew coming in I had some mentors I could work with and I sought them out. And one of the best pieces of advice that I was given early on is work so well with others, work so hard with others that your gender is not an issue. Just
Mm.
do the work. Don't make it about you're this or you're that. You're just a great worker. You're a great teammate. You are someone people can rely on. And I think by focusing on the work at hand, focusing on teamwork, focusing on the goal, made it that people wanted me on their team. And it wasn't until I went to homicide where they made a really big deal that I was the first female homicide sergeant, and they wanted to do a media piece on it, and I balked. And I said, "I'm not comfortable with this because I worked really hard to be the best candidate. I don't want someone to think I got this because I was a girl." And the public information officer pulled me aside, said, "Look, that's great that you've worked really hard, but there are people out there that don't know as a woman or as anything that they can do it despite or because of. So just if you could do this piece for us, explain how you got there because you're going to give hope to someone that didn't have that background where of course you can do everything." And and I did it. And it's funny because cops are interesting people. I was given a hard time about it by, my fellow male
I'm sure
officers,
you
like,
were.
but you take that in good fun because
Yeah.
the more important piece was, could this help someone else to realize that, yes, you can do it? Um, and so the only place I ever saw that really gender came up. Like I said, Vegas was a very proactive agency with some amazing role models ahead of me that had paved the way by doing the work. And so I wasn't coming in as a detriment, I was coming in as an asset.
I love that. I love that. And I have another question along those same lines, and I'm going to try to word it the right way. It's kind of in my head, and I hope I'm going to get out of my mouth in the correct way. But have you ever run into a scenario because people have different points of view of things, and sometimes we make assumptions about other people's actions or lack of action. And I talk to people sometimes about like prejudicial kind of experiences and that type of thing. Did you ever run into a situation where someone was kind of projecting and determining that they were being treated some kind of way because of some kind of profiling going on when that actually wasn't the case? When it was like, because you did the opposite. You the way I heard you said, you were going into it like, just be a good team player.
Mhm.
I don't really want to see myself as different. Just be there, show up, connect, do the good job. Did you ever run into situations where, for whatever reason, someone seemed to have a chip on their shoulder and they were assuming that other people were treating them differently because of something about them when that actually wasn't the case?
All the time. I mean, I think that it's people can everyone has their own perspective, their own
Yeah.
reason for why things are happening, and I think you can often fall back on that versus getting curious about, "Why is this happening?" So I think I had to learn early on. I was glad I had some life experience before I became a cop because That's important, right? You put these young 18 to 21-year-old kids out there, and I call them kids, they're young adults out there to help people solve problems when they have no experience in that area whatsoever. And it's kind of like, how are you going to help? Where I learned early is that, hey, not everybody is like you. Not everyone has the same background or thinking, and let them lead you as to how they got there. So removing assumptions was really key to me, is that I've just got to be curious about how we got there, why we're here, and don't assume you know where they're going. Let them show you or tell you, and then help guide them because they've been able to express where they are. I think that really helped me because everyone has their perspective. They're coming into the situation with their chip or their experiences. Well, it was my job to figure out what that was, so at least I could understand what the issue was or help point back to, well, maybe there's another reason why the cops are here today or people are here today, or what you weren't pulled over because of ABC, it was because of this. And when you can explain to someone, how are you seeing it and listen to it, then that often allowed me the opportunity to kind of explain what was really going on because I gave them the space to express themselves.
Pardon the interruption. It's time for our mid roll minute. You all have heard me talk about my speaker sisters and graduating from the Mic Drop Academy. Several of these wonderful women have been guests on Phoenix and Flame. Jess Ekstrom's Mic Drop Boot Camp and workshop were absolutely amazing. I learned so much in a short period of time and gained access to fabulous resources and an incredible support system of women. If you would like to feel more confident with speaking in front of others, whether it's a PTA meeting or a convention, use my links in the show notes and sign up. You will be so glad you did. And also, to the last question, and I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but something that surprised you that when you went engaged in these scenarios with people that were experiencing a lot of different things, maybe it had a lot of interesting and possibly traumatic backgrounds, that they were assuming some things about themselves and about other people because of some horrible things they have experienced in their life. Um, and you go in into a negotiating platform. What is one thing that surprised you, whether it was about yourself or whether it was about the situation or other people that you didn't expect, you didn't see coming?
Well, I can tell you going in as a crisis negotiator and, your first case, my first case I had was a gentleman who had robbed a bank. And I'm going to tell you, I've never robbed a bank. I've never committed a felony crime in my life like that. So going in, there's a lot of pressure on you. It's like, how am I ever going to engage with this person, let alone everyone's listening to you? And what really surprised me is it doesn't matter who the person is. There is a universal need for every person to be heard,
Mm,
to be seen, and to be
love that.
understood. I
Love
mean,
that.
it's a universal, and so there's a reason why negotiators were brought into existence. If we only had SWAT, the big cars and all this coming up, and I walked up the door and I just started yelling, "Hey, come on, you idiot! What have you done? Get your butt out here! They're coming in." Realize we've created dynamic for violence. I mean, just
Mhm.
that is not going to end. Something bad is going to happen. Maybe someone's going to come up because they respect the force authority, but in the end, that's not going to end well. The reason why negotiators are there is to kind of, let's bring the temperature down. And when you can allow the someone the ability to start to think, to express themselves, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, when you can let them bring those emotions, they start to go down. When those
Mhm.
emotions go down, when they're expressed, then all of a
Pardon the
sudden that
interruption.
rational
It's
thinking is
time for our
going up,
mid
and
roll
now we've got
minute.
something to work
You
with,
all have heard me
right?
talk about
So
my
that
speaker
was
sisters and
truly
graduating from the
surprising
Mic
where
Drop Academy.
it was so
Several of these
scary to
wonderful
pick
women
up the
have been
phone or
guests on
get them
Phoenix and Flame.
engaged to start
Jess
with,
Ekstrom's
but in
Mic
the end,
Drop Boot
you
Camp
knew
and
what was gonna
workshop
work,
were
is
absolutely
if you just
amazing. I learned
allow
so
the
much
person
in a short
without
period
judgment,
of
because I
time
can
and gained
if I judge
access
you all
to
day for what you're
fabulous
doing, you're not
resources
gonna
and an
you're not gonna
incredible
interact with
support
me. We're
system of
not gonna
women.
get anywhere.
If you
It's
would like to feel
non-judgmental.
more
I don't know
confident
how
with
you got
speaking
here,
in front of
but if I
others,
can get
whether
you to
it's a PTA
express
meeting or a
how or to kind of
convention,
explain what's
use
going
my
on,
links in the
all of
show
a
notes and
sudden,
sign
you
up.
that are in
You will be
crisis
so
are
glad
gonna
you
be
did.
able to you're going to start to think clearer. All of a sudden, clarity is going to come in, logic's going to come in. Okay, wait, I need to figure this out. How we're going to solve this? Because in the end, I'm selling the person in crisis mostly jail time. That's what's going to happen today, right? What I don't want is for this crisis to get worse, you to hurt yourself, you to hurt anyone else. We're trying to figure out a way to resolve this so you can move forward from here. And so I was really surprised at how, even though I would think we would be so different because I've never robbed a bank, I've never murdered someone, just giving that person the opportunity to kind of work through this. They're in a spot and we need to figure out how to help them walk out of it, but they're not walking alone because my job is to all of a sudden walk across the field mentally and kind of see the world through your eyes and kind of engage with you so we are both seeing it and trying to resolving it, collaborating together to help you be safe. It doesn't mean there's not going to be consequences. It doesn't mean it's not changing all that. Instead, it's giving them that opportunity to, okay, how do we move forward from here?
That is awesome, and I'm really kind of wanting your thoughts on, do you feel like that the action, the crime, is almost a secondary issue? Let me give you an example. When I talk to people that, um, are expressing where they're abusing, or using excessively, maybe alcohol or some kind of medication, and people focus on that so much, but when you're talking to them, you find out that's just a secondary thing. That's not the original thing. That
Right.
that's just a response to the original thing. So
Absolutely.
as you're talking, that's coming in my mind, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the crime being the secondary thing to what the original issue actually is.
A and it usually is whether it's, I mean, if you think about it, if someone doesn't need money, then they're not going to go to work. They're not going to rob a bank. They're not gonna do all the things to get money, right? So there's a need there that is not being fulfilled. Whether they've done other things, there's a need there's a basic need that they're trying to get, and they're doing it in a different way than, say, I would or you would do. There's something going on there. So what's led us to this point? And when you can get someone to kind of talk about why they're in the situation, how they're getting there. Once again, it's allowing someone the opportunity to explain their situation, and it provides me an area to kind of help them. Okay, so where are we going to go today? Where can we go to? How can I help you get through this? So I think there's always going to be secondary issues. I mean, if there's a crime that happens of violence, something's happened beforehand for the most part that
Mhm,
has there's some kind of trigger, that something that's happened, not placing blame anywhere than where it needs to be, but there's
mhm.
something else underlying that has occurred. And that's, usually a trigger response of why we're there that day.
That's fabulous because what I'm hearing you say are 2 things. 1, there's a secondary issue, right? And also, there are what I call natural consequences of our behavioral choices.
Sure.
Those both of those need to be, yes, we can understand that the actual crime is a secondary thing. There's a core issue that happened before that, like you said, maybe a need that has not been met, and they have poor coping skills. They don't know how to get this need met. You don't know what background they came out of. And also, since they're an adult and they chose to behave in this way, because there's other people out there that maybe have experienced something similar that they experienced growing up, some kind of trauma or some negative experience that did not respond with crime,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So, and there does need to be natural, because I feel like if somebody goes too far in either direction, if they're too much, oh bless their heart, it's just all they were traumatized, they shouldn't be held accountable because they had a bad upbringing. If they go too far in that direction, then that's not going to end well. But neither does it end well, seems like, if somebody's way too punitive and they have no interest in finding out what caused a person to do that to begin with? Seems like
Correct.
there needs to be a balance, and that's what I'm hearing you say.
Correct. In my opinion, is absolutely. I mean, we are not we're not robots. We are all our own individual circumstances, but each of us is responsible for our own actions, our own choices, even given, like you said, you could have two people that have the same exact upbringing, same against issues. It could be horrific, but they don't make the same choices. That's on them, right? And it just is. So yeah, accountability is always important, but there's also, I think it's important is how does someone heal? How does someone move forward? And it might not help the person that they have harmed, but in the end, they're still a human that we're trying to in the long term salvage for their own life. It just is you. My hope is that for everyone can heal in their own way.
Yeah, that's fabulous. Now, I want to take this next segment here, and I'm very fascinated in how you are using your experience with crisis negotiation and a lot of the things that we've been talking about so far into the corporate space, into the business space, and helping these leaders use these skills that you have developed in a corporate space. So help us kind of connect those dots.
Absolutely. So Chris Voss is a genius. So Chris Voss, for those that don't know, he was in the FBI crisis negotiator. Amazing crisis negotiation saves throughout the world. And as he left, he's Harvard trained. He kind of went to Harvard and was able to kind of turn some of their negotiation principles on end by thinking a little differently. And he has written a book called Never Split the Difference. So it's 10 years old this month, and it's a great book that takes crisis negotiation principles, what I learned going through the FBI negotiation school, what Chris learned being a crisis negotiator with the FBI, taking what we've learned and he's enhanced them, but taken them to the business world, how this can truly translate. And he has adopted something called tactical empathy, which is actually being able to recognize the perspective of another person and then verbalizing that what you're seeing perspective, demonstrating through that verbalizing that you're seeking to understand their perspective. And it is incredible how in the negotiation world, it is making it about the other party first before it's about yourself. We're so often in the business world negotiation, it's me, my ask, what can I get? Instead,
Mhm.
it's making it about the other person first to truly understand where they're coming from, and by that, you're able then to collaborate knowing their vision, because vision is going to drive decision. So he's written this book. There are now we teach, people all over the world. Most of the instructors are crisis negotiators or experienced business people. And it is fascinating that teaching these simple skills, they're all communication skills, they're active listening skills, with the core being listening first, making it about the other person, that you're able to make deals you never even thought were possible because you've got two sides working together. And it has been fascinating that it's a joy to be able to help others who I mean, they have bigger brains than I'll ever have, had seen things I've never seen and are talking about dollars that I will never even understand. But being able to help them create things they never thought were possible by some simple, skills, whether it's one-on-one coaching or coming to events, it's really been fascinating. And it's great to work with a bunch of other crisis negotiators and business leaders who really seek to help others. I think these kind of skills should be taught middle school and high school because you're
Oh, I
teaching
agree.
people how to listen first because and listening for the reason behind why people are saying what they're saying instead of listening just long enough so that I can respond. It's just a different way of doing business. And I love it. It's just been
Oh,
fascinating.
it sounds amazing. So I have 2 questions. I'll see if I can get them both out before one of them disappears. If we're
We're
being
so
brutally
like me.
honest
I
here.
love it. I love it.
So one of them is, what do you feel is the biggest obstacle to listening? Like, why is it that why do people have, because it sounds like, well, that's not a no-brainer. Then why do we have such a freaking problem with it? So that's question 1. And question 2 is, what what is the main issue that you have heard business leaders come to you all with? What is their main, what do you hear over and over and over again that is that is a struggle that business leaders have to deal with that you're trying to come in and support them with? So those 2 different questions.
Okay, so first of all, listening. Listening is hard. Listening, we are programmed, I think, to listen to respond. There's 5 levels of listening with Black Swan. The lowest is just listening and you're doing other things, just the gist, you can pop in and out. I call it the mother-in-law, where you just go, "Uh-huh, uh-huh," and just let the conversation go. Or then the next is listening to problem solve, and I think as a cop, that's a lot of what I did, is I'm listening long enough, like, "I got a solution. I got it." But what that does is if you only listen to that, you're not allowing your counterpart to truly explain where they're coming from, what they're talking about. You're dismissing where they're at. Instead, we focus on listening for the reason behind what they're saying and for the emotions that are tied to it. And I think we are so programmed in the business world with scripts. I got to get through A, B, and C, and D, or I got to do my ask first. So I get my stuff out there. Is we miss an opportunity to just listen and just allow the other person to, as we all know, get that rational thinking up, stress down, get the emotions down. So we're actually logically thinking and working together. I just think we're just programmed to go play ping pong when we talk versus taking the time to soak in what someone's saying and then get more curious about what they've just said. So I just we're just not taught to do that.
Right. I got that. Makes a lot of sense. And plus, a lot of those, like listening to solve a problem, it appears helpful, but really, it's so the person can feel better about solving the problem.
Right, and often I find that so I have teenage kids, and I listen to problem solve all the time because that's my go-to sometimes with them, right? I mean, that's my job. But if I instead listen to what they're saying and kinda get curious about it, all of a sudden as they're talking, they're solving the problem themselves.
Yep.
Now, if I tell them how to do something, they're not gonna do it, or it could be reluctant or whatever, but if it's their idea, guess what? All of a sudden they're doing it because it's their idea. And that's where I think we miss by allowing someone else to solve their problem. You can be there with them, but allow them to solve it themselves makes it there's ownership over it, and people more tend to do it than if you're trying to just problem solve. Because I don't think everyone wants the problem solved for them. Some people just want to vent. Some people just want to express what they're feeling. And if you problem solve, you're not giving them that opportunity to actually get out that expression.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the next question was about, and we'll do this, and then we're going to get to how the listeners and the viewers can get more of you. So the next question was, what's the main struggle that the business leaders have? What do you hear? What comes on repeat from these fabulous men and women leaders who are struggling and trying to do a good job, and they're reaching out, going, "Oh my gosh, please help me with this. I've tried everything I know to try. I can't get it fixed. It keeps happening over and over." What would that be?
I think often is we have our go-to ways of fixing things. So we can sit and we can discuss, hey, you know what? We're going to make sure we make it about the other person first. We're going to change, kind of our sequencing. We're going to first make it about the other person. We're going to get all that information out, and then we're going to see things from the same sides. Like, that's great. And then they work against themselves and go right back to what they are used to doing. I think so often where people are scared to try it or they're like, nope, that's never gonna we work against ourselves. I see that so often. And I think too is with Black Swan skills, I mean, we have different things called like labels, there's different things that we do. If you don't actually practice them, if you don't put them out in the low stakes, like with your friends, your family, going to a restaurant, practicing these skills, when the big negotiation comes, you don't have the confidence that it's going to work. So you just put it aside. So it's kind of like if I read a book about working out, I read it every week, but I never lift a weight. I can't
Yeah.
expect to see anything different. So I think it's kind of shifting the mindset of this does take work. And it takes consistency, but you're going to see great results. And we hear it all the time. People that I tried it, I did it this, and we get excited emails or excited, calls back. It's like, it worked. I can't believe it worked, but I practiced, like you said, and then put it into practice and it was perfect. And that's what we love to hear is people trusting that process.
I love that. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I teach the same thing to my patients. If they're like, for example, deep breathing, I said, we could go through an exercise in the office and you can have a great experience, but you need to practice it just when you're calm. And I say,
Right.
practice it several times throughout the day. I tell them exactly how to do it so that when that moment comes, when you feel like you might be having to battle a panic attack, you've got the skills and your body just knows how to do it. You don't have to think about it because you've done it so much, it's just on autopilot, but it takes that practice to be able to do it, like you said, in the low stakes
Mhm.
platforms.
Right.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, Annette, so how can my listeners and viewers find you? If they wanna get in contact with you, they want more of what you've got, where do they go?
So, Black Swan Group is a website that you can go to. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find Chris Voss and the Black Swan Group all over YouTube. There's a new book that has just been released, and I'll show it to you. That takes the uh, the never split the difference and brings it into another. It's called Fight Less, Win More, and it's like it's taking what are great hostage negotiation skills and really putting it in personal and business. A lot of how we've adapted the skills from 10 years ago. So it's a great it's I actually gave it to my sisters and they're like, "Oh, how never to get in a fight with my husband" book. I'm like, "Yes. Yes, it's about learning about each other again, even though you've been together for years." But, I highly recommend that. But yeah, on LinkedIn, just please find me. And like I said, I'm very grateful for the opportunity Black Swan has given, and I think it really can help a lot of people.
Fabulous. Annette, this has been great. I so appreciate you and you being willing to spend your precious time and your effort and also being vulnerable and sharing some of your personal experiences and the wisdom that you've gleaned throughout the years from your time with crisis negotiation to share it with me, with my listeners, with my viewers. Thank you, Annette, so much.
Well, thank you. And it's been a joy to listen to your podcast. I love what you're doing for people to see that there's so many places you can go, even when you're down in the dust. So I'm really grateful for what you're doing for others. So thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Now, hey, listeners, viewers, listen, I know that you've heard at least 5 things today that you're thinking, I know one of my friends, I know a coworker, I have a family member that needs to hear exactly what Annette just said." So, take this podcast episode, copy and paste it, send it in a text, send it an email, put it on your favorite social media platform so we can grow our Phoenix and Flame community to let people know you are not alone. I hope your day has been great. I hope the rest of your day is fantastic. I'm Data on Phoenix and Flame.